Hello, my name's Darryl and welcome to this week's fretboard lesson. We're going to take a look at some creative ways to take chords which are simple and turn them into chords that sound good. So whether it's with your song or someone else's song, the idea is to take some pretty bog standard sounding chords and find interesting ways that you can turn them into really nice pieces of guitar music and spice up your playing. So the chords I've chosen today are E, B, C sharp minor and A. And the reason I've chosen those chords is because they form one of the most common chord progressions of all time. It's not the fact that they're E, B, C sharp minor and A that makes them the most common, it's the fact that in a major key, this is in E major, they are chords 1, 5, 6 and 4, which is one of the most common ways to move through a major key of all time, most successful chord progressions there are. But even so, one of the most common chord progressions of all time can sound pretty boring if I just play the chords one after another. So the first thing we're going to do to try and make this sound more interesting is we're going to use the rule of open strings. Now the rule of open strings is the more open strings that we can stuff into a chord progression, often the nicer it will sound. On guitar, open strings sound very pretty because they ring out for longer than normal fretted notes would. Let me show you. So if I take a G note on the 5th fret of string 4 and play it, that's fretted. Can you hear the note dying there? Versus if I play the G string, which is exactly the same note, it's ringing out for longer and eventually it dies out. So it rings out a little bit longer, which might seem like I'm being a little bit anal over just those two notes. However, when you expand that across multiple strings, it can have a really big impact. So the first thing we're going to do to get more open strings in this is we're going to jump on with a capo and play those same chords, but capoed on the guitar. Now, anyone who ever told you that capos are just for beginner guitar players is not right. They're a great tool for beginners because you can move them up and down, but actually capos are just a great tool for the guitar in general, and I have used a capo on many a song recording because of the sound that you can get from the capo. So let's pop the capo on. So if I'm in E major, then I'm going to pop the capo on fret 4 in this case, and it makes all the chords become like C major. And if you want a video on how to do capo changes and that transposition idea in future, leave me a note in the comment and I'll make a full video on it for you. So if I pop it on fret 4, the chords E, B, C sharp minor and A become C, G, A minor and F. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stick a drum backing track on and I'm going to play you with the original chords first, and then I'm going to play you with the capo chords so you can hear the difference. It's subtle, but there is a difference. Let's check it out. Alright, so that's a very subtle change, but it does make a difference. For instance, when I move that G chord, I've got 3 open strings which are ringing, versus when I did which is the same, by the way, that G chord is the same as the B chord. So you might find that quite a subtle difference, but it can be a really nice change and a nice way to brighten up the song. So I think of the two, the first one sounds a bit darker, and the second one brightens up. Because we have those open strings, and actually because we've lifted it along the fretboard slightly in some cases too. So cool. Capos is the first way that we can get more open strings in. So sticking with the theme of trying to put as many open strings as we can in, well, we have another option. Number 2 is trying to put open strings in, but they don't necessarily have to be the right notes from each chord, but they do have to be in the scale. So in the scale of E major, we have E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. Now, most of those you don't have to pay attention to, but the fact that we have an E note and a B note is really relevant here, especially because they're notes 1 and 5 of the key, the two very important notes in our scale. They're also the two strings that we have right at the top of the guitar. We have the E string right here and we have the B string right here. So what I can do is I can play the chords and leave those two strings ringing out the whole time. So if I play an E chord, they're already ringing out. But I can go up and play an A chord, or a B chord, or the C sharp minor, and I can leave those two strings ringing out. And they have a really nice sound over it. I can actually do this with all the chords in E major, but I'm going to do it just with these 4 chords we've got. So let's hear what that chord progression sounds like with those 4 chords. Alright, cool. So that set of chords, it's not a dramatically different set of chords to what we started with, but it is slightly different, and it's a nice set that you could use to fill space, especially if you're singing and playing at the same time. So number 3 is what are called add 9 chords, or the Police chords is another way of thinking about them, because Andy Summers from the Police uses these all the time. Every breath you take, Message in a Bottle, they're all using these kind of chords. So what's an add 9 chord? Well, an add 9 chord is our normal triad with a 9th note added on. Let's find out what a 9th is. A 9th is, if we take a scale and we have 8 notes in our scale, we have root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we have root, which is actually the octave, or 8. A 9, well, it doesn't exist, does it? It does, because the 9 is the 2 again. We just name it. It's this note here, but we name it a 9th because music, and I'm not going to go into why today, but really it's a 2. So for us to find a 9th note in a chord, we take our root note of the chord and we go 2 frets up. So if we're in E, the root of E is E, and 2 frets up is an F sharp. So here I have my E, and if I go 2 frets up, I've got an F sharp and I can put it in the top. If I go to the B chord and I go 2 frets up from my root note, which is on the B string here, I'm not going to do it in the bass, I'm doing it on the D string. I've got my C sharp chord, I can do the same thing. C sharp minor, I haven't got my middle finger down, but it doesn't matter that it's a minor chord. I've got my root on fret 11 of string 4, take that up 2 frets, bit of a stretch. And then my A chord, same thing. Okay, so this sounds really pretty, and you can get some really nice chords out of it. So you can either arpeggiate it or pick it. Or we can strum it. Let's hear what it sounds like with the drums. So I think they sound like a really cool set of chords, and I use them all the time when I'm songwriting. So my final suggestion today for spicing up your chords and making your chord progression sound a bit more interesting is using suspended chords. I love suspended chords. Suspended chords are a really nice way to take a chord progression that's not sounding very interesting and make it just have a little bit of kick to it. Let's hear what they sound like first of all, because I think that's helpful for the context of us understanding how to use them. So. Alright, cool. So with the suspended chords, what we need to do is we need to take the third of the chord and we need to move it a little bit. So on a major chord, it moves up by a semitone, or 1 fret. On a minor chord, it moves up by a tone, or 2 frets on the guitar. So in an E major, if I'm playing this kind of 6-string chord here, it's on the 3rd fret. And we're going to do all kind of bar chordy shapes all the way up the fretboard so that your 3rd is always on the same string. So if I do this shape, I've got on my 1st finger here, on the 3rd string is where my 3rd is. And if I press my pinky down on fret 2, I go up by 1 fret because it's a major chord. If I go up by 1 fret, I get my sus4. When I go to the B chord, you're going to want to play it differently than how you might normally. So often when you play bar chords, you might use this bar chord shape, but you want to also get practiced using this. This is just a B triad, and I'm just playing strings 2, 3, 4, and I'm on fret 7 of the 2nd string, fret 8 of the 3rd string, and fret 9 of string 4. And I'm playing a B triad. And then what I'm doing is bringing my thumb over the top to play that bass note. And that means, and my thumb's actually kind of touching the A string too, so I'm not getting any sound out of that. Apparently I am. There we go. So my thumb's coming over the top to play the B note, which is on fret 7 of string 6, and then I'm strumming all the strings. And this A string is not ringing out because it's kind of being touched a bit by my thumb and a little bit by this finger here. So we're not really hearing much from it. And now what that's done is it's left my pinky free. So when my pinky's free, it's going to be able to go back and forth between the 3rd and the 4th. So now I can get that sound. So now I'm going to go to the C sharp minor, 2 frets up, and I'm going to do pretty much the same thing, except I don't need the major triad, I need a minor triad, which means that my middle finger lifts off, and my 1st finger is going to press down on strings 2 and 3, and I could even press down just with 2 fingers and end up with a C sharp minor 7, which is totally fine in this case. But I need that 3rd finger free, and I can get it to press down on string 3, fret 11, and it can go up 2 frets from that 3rd. And then down to my A. Now on the A, we can't actually do a sus4 on it because the note isn't in the scale. Because when we go to our sus4 there, the note that we press down is a D, and in the key of E we have D sharp. So this is true for every chord number 4 in every major key, is that we can't use a sus4 on it. But we can do a sharp 4 there. So if I move a tone high, and it's a little bit creepy, it's like, it's very tense. I kind of think it sounds cool. But if you don't like it, you just don't do the sus chord there, or the sus4 there. You could do a sus2. But we'll talk about those another time. So let's hear what the whole thing sounds like with a bit of drums going on, see if we like it. cool. So I really like the sus4 chords. I think all of the different things we've discussed today are all things that I have used many a time when it comes to trying to play a song that's someone else's song and make it my own version, or trying to take some kind of boring sounding chords that I've written and put them into a recording. So have some fun with them, enjoy yourself, and I will see you next time. If you want to learn some more things in the meantime, I've put some videos to the left of me and to the right of me here so that you can check them out and keep your learning going. See you next time. Thanks very much.